All right, so you've gotten your offer accepted. You're in escrow. You've got all your contingencies removed, and you're moving towards the close of escrow. And so your loan documents have been ordered, and you're going to be signing those. And you got
You get keys to the property, Ronnie?
well, before you get the keys to the property, you want to do. There's one final, very important step, and that's the final walkthrough.
The final walkthrough.
So I am Rami Dhillon. I'm a real estate agent with Realty ONE Group Southwest in Temecula, California, and this is my buddy
Alfred Ramirez from Impulse Capital Partners.
He is a lender. And so just to get that out there.
Yeah.
So in case you don't know what they do.
What I do, I just stand here and look pretty.
Yeah, he does. So the final walkthrough, generally speaking, contractually speaking, it's done within about 5 days before the close of escrow. So now, what is the purpose of the final walkthrough? Who accompanies you at the final walkthrough? Who's going to be there at the house? Those are some things we're going to talk about. So Alfred, when we do the final walkthrough, the purpose basically is to make sure that the house is substantially in the same condition that it was when the buyer and buyer's agent first viewed it.
Correct. Correct. So you don't want to go in there and find out that the buyer ended up scratching up all the walls before
the seller.
Oh yeah, the seller.
Yeah.
Before you actually signed your loan docs and closed on the house.
Right.
And you got your keys and you go into the house and you're like, oh shoot, what happened here?
Right. Yeah, I mean, the seller's moving out, maybe banged up the walls. I mean, most of the time that doesn't happen, but it does. Things like that happen.
Or the seller's still in the house.
Right. So those are some important concerns. The final walkthrough, like I said, you want to make sure the house is in the same condition or even better condition than it was before. You want to make sure that if there were any repairs that you requested from the seller to be completed,
those are done
as part of the request for repairs, that those have been completed, right? And also, some sellers sometimes maybe they don't realize that certain things that are attached to the house are supposed to stay inside the house, right?
Yeah.
So that's important to not just is the house in the same condition, but make sure they don't take things that are attached.
Sometimes you might put in there, the refrigerator, stove, that stuff that I'm not sure. Sometimes you could request that stuff to be in the house, but sometimes the seller still takes that, and then you end up buying the house and expecting that stuff in there, and it's not.
Right. For example, like the stove. Now that's something that's considered to be attached to the house. I once had a seller. This is a true story. Actually, took the stove, right, and the buyers were doing their final walkthrough, and the agent calls me. What's going on here?
Yeah, or the dishwasher,
right?
Something.
And even though I explained to the seller contractually, these are the things that stay in. These are things that are considered part of the house that are attachments and whatnot. He felt that stove was his. So, anyways, it could cause problems, and that could cause problems with your transaction. So that's why you want to do the final walkthrough.
Or holes in the wall, you know. When they're moving out and they're moving their furniture, and they accidentally hit the wall and put a hole in the drywall, something in that aspect. So that's what you're kind of looking for when you go through the final walkthrough. It's not something like a hole you need an inspector there or anything.
No,
it's just you and your realtor.
Right.
Most of the time, just kind of walking through the house, just a visual inspection, just to make sure, hey, the house is the way I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so it's not an inspection because you've already completed your inspection by the time you've reached this point. You requested any repairs that were possibly of concern to you on that report. So at this point, you're not calling out any new repairs.
Yeah.
But you are mindful of, hey, that wasn't like that, or that hole wasn't in the wall, right? Yeah. The ceiling wasn't falling down with the water leaking through through it, or whatever.
Or hey, the dishwasher's gone, or the stove's gone, or
exactly. And then also Alfred just brought up something I didn't touch on, is that so who's going to be with you at the final walkthrough? It's going to be your agent, and at this point now you're anywhere between 1 to 5 days before closing. The seller should have either moved out or substantially moved out most of his.
Maybe he's got to get a box or two.
Yeah.
No furniture.
Yeah. Because at this point there's the buyer has removed all their contingencies, so that buyer's all in.
Yeah.
The loan's approved. You've gotten the clear to close from the lender, meaning that everything is in, all the paperwork, all the income documentation.
All they need is your signature.
All they need is for you to sign the loan documents, fund the loan, and record the deed at the end. So at this point, the seller should be comfortable enough to be moving out or have moved out by now.
Yeah.
And so if he hasn't touched anything and
I would not be closing that loan.
So what would you do? No, so seriously, there's
there's a lot of things you can do. I mean,
right.
You could rent the house back to them. I mean, for a certain period of time. Normally this all comes prior to even closing.
You could do that, but I wouldn't recommend it because you don't want to be a landlord. Here's what I would do. We get an extension on the escrow. We would say, you know what? Look,
we're going to give you another 10 days.
10 days, whatever. We're not closing. We want to see that you're substantially, out of the house. Or one thing you might try doing, but at this point, I don't know if you could, because you could say, hey, we're going to hold back certain amount of the seller's proceeds after the close of escrow.
Until you're
so if the seller wants to close and he say, hey, I'm getting out, so buyer can say, look,
you can have escrow do that.
Yeah, you can do that.
Escrow could hold the proceeds priir to them getting out.
But seller has to agree. Seller still has to agree. So, but there's a give and take here. So the seller, you're giving him time, and by giving him time, but you're also agreeing, hey, look, you know what? We're going to hold back $5,000 or $10,000, and when we close and you're out, and we've seen that you're out, the escrow will release those funds to you.
Yeah.
So you could do that. Seller still has to sign off on that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
Of course, that has to be agreed upon.
Right. So, but now if it's something minor, let's say some repairs haven't been completed, something really minor, maybe a cover plate to an outlet was missing. You could overlook that, or you could say, Mr. Seller, could you please complete that as part of us closing. But if it's something major, not only if they haven't moved out, I mean, what if something major does occur? What if they do have a leak upstairs and floods the whole house, right?
Well,
maybe
you can always go back to the negotiation table.
Well, you got maybe $50,000, $100,000 worth of damage. What do you do then?
Yeah.
Right? You could essentially, now this is where you're going to have to consult an attorney. So I could say, we could say, well, what would you do? You could essentially back out, but even then you could be in breach of contract. But that's why now it gets messy. So you would, but you might not want to close if something like that happens and it's not addressed.
Yeah.
Or it is going to be
addressed. Or the lender
addressed.
won't fund if that's what's kind of happening.
Exactly.
So you won't have the funds.
So there's a problem at that point. But the whole point of the final walkthrough is to see if something like that has happened or not.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to go through every room in the house. You want to check. You want to check the outlets. You want to check. The faucets, the toilets, flush them.
Everything you can.
Everything.
And again, it's not a full-on inspection.
Right.
But you do want to check all that stuff because again, this is your house. You're moving into it, so you just want to make sure, hey, these things are functional now that this guy's moving out. Nothing. He didn't break anything on his way out on accident. I don't think anybody does it intentionally.
Right. No.
Yeah.
And especially things that were functioning when you saw the house.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're not functioning. So you want to be concerned about that. And you also want to check out the backyard, if there's any sheds in the backyard,
Make
the
sure
garage.
they didn't take them.
Yeah, or they didn't take the shed, or if they left any type of weird chemicals or gasoline or anything weird that's environmentally hazardous. You want them to remove those things. You want to look in the attic if you can. I mean, a lot of times it's not accessible. So now that's the thing though. So if there were some repairs that were requested, you want to get all the invoices from the seller, make sure they were completed, and because you might not be able to access some of the repairs, like what if something in the attic, the HVAC system or something.
Yeah, you want to make sure it was repaired. So if you have the invoices, it was repaired.
Right. And if there's a basement, you check that out. So make sure you check out every room in the house, that it's and everything's in working condition the way it was when you saw the house.
And then you sign your docs, and then you get your keys.
Right. Well, yeah. So then if you're satisfied with the final walkthrough, everything's in order, then you're going to sign off on that, and you're going to sign your loan documents, and then you're going to fund the loan.
And then you get your keys.
Then you get your keys. Then hold on. Then you get confirmation recording of the grant deed.
Oh yeah, it's got to record first.
Got to record.
Got to own the house first before you can get your keys.
So once you get confirmation of that, then you get the keys.
Then you get the keys.
And then the house is yours. So, well, that's it. I hope you folks enjoyed the video.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, please let us know. If you have any questions on loans or funding loans, I mean, get a hold of me. If you have questions on real estate, you need to sell your house, get a hold of Rami.
Let us know. Leave some comments. And if you have any questions, please leave those down there as well. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel. And we will see you folks
soon
on the next video.
Next one.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.